He felt the regret long before he admitted it. It arrived quietly at first, like a shadow gliding across the edges of a life he thought he had under control. Then it shifted, deepened, pressed its hands around his ribs, and squeezed until the truth finally surfaced. He had lost something he wasn't built to replace. He didn't tell anyone about the moment it hit him, about waking in the middle of the night with that sharp, aching pull in his chest, about realizing the absence of her voice wasn't peaceful. It was punishment. The memory of her kindness followed him into every room, clinging like the scent of smoke after a fire. He used to believe good women were easy to find. Then he learned the quiet cruelty of time. It doesn't wait for a man to grow up. It doesn't pause for hesitation. It doesn't return what it watched him take for granted. There was a night, one he never spoke of, when he sat in his car in the driveway long after the engine died, hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. He finally whispered into the dark, "I thought she'd stay." And the darkness whispered back with a silence so heavy, it felt like a verdict. He knew then that regret wasn't a feeling, it was a sentence, and he was serving it alone. Before we go deeper, if these stories help you understand yourself or the people you loved, make sure you like the video, subscribe for more episodes, and share this with someone who might need it. And with that said, let's return to where the story was quietly unraveling. She had been a steady presence in his life, warm, patient, grounded in ways he didn't yet understand. He used to come home to her soft laughter filling the kitchen, the way she spoke gently even when she was tired, the small ways she made the world feel breathable. She didn't announce her love. She lived it, in how she remembered the things he forgot, in how she forgave the things he repeated, in how she stood by a man who had no idea how rare loyalty like hers truly was. But back then, he felt invincible in his detachment. He mistook her consistency for permanence. He thought a good woman stayed because that's what good women did. He thought her softness was an endless resource, one he could draw from without ever pouring anything back. The first shift happened subtly. She stopped reminding him about the little things, stopped offering explanations he didn't listen to anyway, stopped waiting for the version of him she always believed he could become. He noticed, but not enough, not in time. One evening, she stood by the doorway with her coat in her hand, her eyes steady in a way that frightened him more than anger ever could. There was no speech, no collapse, no pleading. Just a quiet resolve that told him everything was already over. And she walked out, calm, tired, done. He didn't chase her. He still believed she'd come back. He didn't understand that the scariest part of losing a good woman is that she only leaves after she's already gone internally, long before she packs a single bag. Weeks passed, then months. Life faded into routines so hollow they echoed. He started noticing the spaces she once filled, the way his home felt colder, the way meals tasted emptier, the way the silence stayed longer than it should. There came a morning when he reached for his phone out of habit, typing her name without meaning to. The message box blinked, but he couldn't bring himself to press send. Because men know, deep down, that when a good woman finally chooses herself, she's not waiting on the other side of their hesitation anymore. He closed the phone, closed his eyes, felt the regret settle into him like winter. He thought that was the bottom. He was wrong. Because the real regret wasn't the loss itself. It was the slow dawning realization that she had loved him in ways he hadn't understood until her absence made them unbearable to remember. As he stood in the kitchen months after she left, looking at the chair she used to sit in, the truth cracked open inside him. Regret doesn't destroy a man all at once. It dismantles him piece by piece, memory by memory, moment by moment, until he is forced to face the version of himself he never became for her. And just when he thought he had learned to live with the emptiness, something else shifted. A new presence, a new face, a new woman. One who would eventually reveal a truth even sharper than the loss he already carried. And that truth waited for him just beyond the doorway. As he turned, hearing footsteps approach. He didn't expect to see her standing there. Not her, not the woman he lost, but someone else entirely. Her name was Mara. A coworker at first, a familiar face in the dim office hallways where exhausted people traded deadlines instead of dreams. She wasn't like the woman who left. Her energy was sharper, more guarded, more aware of her own boundaries. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who understood her worth without asking anyone else to validate it. The first time she spoke to him outside work, it was simple. A casual remark, a gentle smile. Yet something inside him twisted. Not with attraction, but with the realization that the world was still moving while he stayed stuck in the wreckage he created. She noticed him long before he realized she was paying attention. She saw the heaviness in the way he stood, the distant look in his eyes when laughter drifted through the room, the way he flinched at kindness, as if it were something undeserved. One evening, as they walked to the parking lot, she said quietly, "You carry your regret like a weight someone else handed you." The words hit harder than anything he'd heard since the night he lost her. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. He wanted to deny it, to pretend he was fine, to pretend months of silence hadn't hollowed him out. But men don't always know how to defend themselves from accuracy, and Mara's perception was surgical. Over the following weeks, she became something of a catalyst, not a replacement, not a romantic spark, but a mirror. One he avoided looking into for as long as he could. She asked about his weekend plans. He hesitated. She asked about the photo on his desk, the one he had avoided removing. His voice cracked as he explained it, and she listened without judgment, without interruption. It was the first time since the breakup that he spoke of her. The good woman he let slip away. The one who offered him a love he didn't yet know how to receive. Mara didn't offer sympathy. She offered clarity. "You miss her," she said. "Not just her. You miss who you could have been if you didn't let fear make your decisions for you." He froze, breath caught in his throat. Fear. The word echoed, because she was right. He hadn't pushed the woman away out of indifference. He'd done it because loving her demanded vulnerability he didn't know how to hold. Men aren't always taught how to stay. Sometimes they only know how to survive, and survival often looks like distance. But regret looks like realization arriving too late. The more Mara observed him, the more she noticed the cracks, the messages he never sent, the apologies he rehearsed and abandoned, the way he kept checking his phone as if waiting for a miracle he knew wouldn't come. She asked him one evening, "If she walked back into your life tomorrow, what would you say?" He opened his mouth and closed it, because there was nothing he could say that would undo the nights. She cried quietly in the dark, wondering why she wasn't enough to make him stay present. The weight of that truth lodged deep in his throat. Mara stepped closer, her voice soft but unyielding. "You didn't lose her the day she walked away. You lost her on the days she was still there, while you treated her love like something you could come back to whenever you wanted." He felt the words like a blade, not fatal, necessary. His regret grew sharper, more defined, more undeniable. And as the weeks stretched on, something darker began to surface. The realization that regret doesn't fade with time. It deepens with understanding. One night, after Mara left him with another piercing observation he wasn't ready to confront, he returned home. He opened the drawer where he kept her old letters, her handwriting still soft, looping gently across the page. Her words filled with affection he once thought was normal. He held the last note she ever wrote him. the one she left on the counter the day she walked out. He read it slowly, letting the truth seep through every line. It wasn't anger, it wasn't blame, it wasn't resentment. It was resignation. That night, he finally understood a truth that changed everything. Men don't regret losing a good woman because they can't find someone else. They regret it because they finally recognize the version of themselves she believed in, and they realize they never rose to meet him. He sank to the floor, the letter trembling in his hand, and before the night ended, Mara sent a message that made his breath freeze. Something you need to know. It's about her. And the screen stayed glowing in the dark, pulling him toward the next fracture in his story. His hands trembled as he tapped the screen. Mara's message expanded into a single line that hollowed the air around him. She's finally moving on. He stared at the words, feeling them slice through the thin layer of denial he'd been using as armor. He knew she had every right to rebuild her life, to choose peace, to be loved the way he never learned to love her back. But knowing didn't soften the impact. It destroyed him. Mara explained the rest the next day. She'd run into a mutual acquaintance, someone who mentioned seeing the woman he lost, standing in line at a small cafe, smiling at a man who leaned in just a little too close. A smile he remembered, a softness he used to wake up beside, a warmth he told himself would always be waiting whenever he was finally ready. But she wasn't waiting anymore. The worst part wasn't that she was with someone. It was the realization that she looked happy, lighter, rebuilt. And he suddenly understood the truth every man eventually learns too late. A good woman doesn't replace you out of spite. She replaces the pain you gave her with someone who won't repeat your mistakes. He sank into a silence that felt like drowning. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly, stopped pretending the world still made sense without her. Every memory resurfaced like a shard cutting its way up from beneath the skin. The morning she made coffee for both of them, the way she placed her hand on his back when she sensed he was overwhelmed, the soft look in her eyes when she believed in his potential more than he believed in himself. He didn't lose her by accident. He lost her through every moment he dismissed, every comfort he took without reciprocating, every emotional door he kept locked while expecting her to wait in the hallway. His breakdown wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't cinematic. It was quiet devastation, the kind that sits in a man's chest and doesn't leave, not even for a moment. He found himself driving to the places they used to visit, a grocery store aisle where she once reached for his hand, a park bench where she told him she never wanted to lose him, a street they walked on during a warm autumn evening when her hair caught the light and she looked back at him as if he was the only person she trusted. He remembered turning away that night, scrolling through his phone, missing the softness of the moment entirely. Now he replayed it with excruciating clarity. One evening, Mara found him in the office stairwell, sitting with his head in his hands. "You're grieving her like she died," she whispered. He looked up, eyes red. "Because she was the only person who ever saw the man I could have been." Mara knelt beside him. "Then why didn't you become him when it mattered?" He didn't answer. He couldn't, because the truth rooted itself too deeply. Men often grow into the man they should have been when they had her, only after she's gone. Days turned into weeks. His world dimmed around the edges. Work felt meaningless. Conversations felt hollow. The smallest memories triggered unexpected spirals. One night, he found himself standing at her old apartment complex, not to see her, not to beg, but because he needed to face the ghost of the life he ruined. He stood in the cold hallway, staring at her door. A door he once unlocked freely. A door she once opened with a smile that made him feel chosen. Now it was just a slab of wood separating him from everything he couldn't take back. He didn't knock. He didn't want to cross her peace with his regret. Instead, he whispered into the empty hallway, "I'm sorry I realized your worth once you were done proving it to me." and the hallway swallowed the confession whole. He sat on the curb outside, feeling the weight of years pressing against his lungs. And in that moment, the root of everything finally surfaced. He had grown up believing that emotions were threats, that vulnerability was weakness, that love was something you earned only after proving you didn't need it. She tried to show him otherwise. She tried to teach him softness. She tried to love him past the walls he didn't know how to tear down. But no woman, no matter how good, can love a man into healing if he refuses to meet her halfway. The realization cracked him open. It wasn't just regret. It was grief for the man he could have been. Grief for the version of him she deserved. Grief for the future he only now understood he wanted. And as he sat there, finally facing the truth of everything he destroyed, a final thought cut through him. Regret isn't about losing her. It's about becoming the man she needed at the exact moment he no longer had the chance to show her. The breakdown settled like dust around him, and he knew the collapse was complete. He woke one morning with the weight still there, but something inside him had shifted. Not relief, not closure, just acceptance. He walked to the mirror and saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the emotional wreckage etched into the lines of his face. But beneath that, he saw something new. A man who finally understood the cost of emotional negligence. He didn't try to win her back. He didn't send a message or craft a final apology. He didn't attempt to shadow her new life with the remnants of his regret. Instead, he began the difficult process of changing for reasons that had nothing to do with winning or losing her. He changed because the truth had broken him open, and staying the same was no longer survivable. He started therapy quietly, not to erase the pain, but to understand it. He learned to name the patterns that pushed her away: emotional avoidance, reactive defensiveness, the deep fear of intimacy he disguised as independence. Weeks turned to months, and he found himself softening, slowing down, listening more, speaking truthfully, holding space for emotions he once buried under silence. The regret never vanished. It transformed. It became a compass instead of a punishment. One day, months after beginning his internal reconstruction, he saw her again. Not in person, not in a moment crafted by fate. Just a photo someone posted. Her smile unmistakable, her eyes bright, her posture relaxed beside the man who now held her heart. There was a pang, a breath that caught in his chest. But he didn't collapse. He didn't spiral. He simply closed his eyes and whispered softly, "I'm glad you're happy." And for the first time, he meant it. He walked away from the screen and felt something settle inside him, the understanding that her happiness was not a reminder of his failure, but evidence that she had finally received the love she deserved. And that acceptance became the quiet ending of his story, a story of a man who realized too late, but learned just in time to never repeat the same mistake again. His regret no longer haunted him. It shaped him, taught him, transformed him. Right now, your story ends emotionally with him walking away, carrying the weight of everything that just happened. But the truth is, what unfolded on the surface was only half the story. Men often regret losing a good woman not because they suddenly see her value, but because they finally confront the emotional limitations that kept them from cherishing her in the first place. A good woman offers stability, emotional nourishment, softness, patience, and depth. But many men raised in environments where vulnerability is punished struggle to receive that intimacy. Their avoidance isn't rejection of her. It's self-protection against feelings they were never taught to navigate. Attachment wounds often show up as distance, withdrawal, inconsistency, or emotional shutdown. A good woman interprets these behaviors as lack of love. In reality, They are symptoms of fear, fear of being seen, fear of failing, fear of not being enough. When she finally leaves, the man faces a mirror he can't look away from. The absence of her emotional presence creates a void that forces introspection. Only then does he recognize she wasn't asking for perfection, she was asking for presence. Regret becomes the turning point. Some men stay stuck there, others use it to grow, to heal, to become emotionally available in a way they couldn't when she loved them most. A good woman doesn't just leave a man, she leaves him with a blueprint of what love could have been, and that blueprint becomes the quiet architect of his transformation. And if you'd like more stories that help you heal, reflect, and grow, you're welcome to stay close by, subscribing to the channel. If the message moved you, feel free to leave a like and share your thoughts or your own experience in the comments. Not for the algorithm, but because your voice might help someone else feel less alone. No pressure, just an invitation. A quiet place to return to whenever your heart needs it. Until then, take care of yourself. You matter more than you realize.